What does it take to run an Upwork agency targeting U.S. companies when you don't live in the U.S.? Well, today's guest is going to provide some great tips and insights to help you. Olga Pogozheva runs an IT firm out of Dublin, Ireland, but she's done work with numerous companies across the world, including the United States. In fact, she's done work for Upwork directly. In this episode, Olga shares her tips and advice for other agency owners. So if you're operating outside the U.S. and want to get more work in the U.S., you're going to love this episode. Let's hear what she has to say. Olga, thank you so much for joining us today. Where are you right now?
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm right now in Dublin, Ireland, and I'm working from home, as you can see in my background. Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm at
that's
home now.
awesome. Well, truly the freelancer lifestyle, right? Work
Yes,
anywhere from any place. So that's
yes, true.
awesome. So one of the things that really struck me about your company in particular was that you do IT services on Upwork. You provide those, but you also have done work directly for Upwork, not just for clients on there. So tell us
Yes.
about your business.
So I have an agency on Upwork, and we provide outsourcing and outsourcing services for our clients. And one of the sales channels we use is Upwork. And we've been working on Upwork with different clients, and we worked directly with Upwork. We provided data engineering services for them, and I had people working directly with them. And I kind of know a little bit inside out information, which I'm not supposed to
Of
disclose.
course.
But yeah, truth is that Upwork does hire people on its platform for the internal teams. I mean, for all sorts of jobs. I know mostly about data engineering. We worked with databases, with all those emails, mail outs you might have been receiving as a freelancer. So all of this stuff, we even did one mistake there. So if anything, that's our
That's
fault.
awesome. And the fact that you are, that you're working directly for corporate Upwork and they hired you from their own platform, I think is fantastic. That makes a ton of sense. And what's more interesting to me is that you are actually, not in the US, even though Upwork is in California. You are outside the US. And I think that's a perspective that, so many people would need to understand more of is what it's like being outside of the US, when you're trying to go after this market, or should you go after the US market? I mean, I'd love to know kind of from your perspective, living outside the country, what do you think of the US market versus other markets out there?
Well, I would say, well, I know quite a lot, I guess, about the US market. I've been to the US twice. And to be honest, I find that the US clients are the easiest clients to work with. I like the business ethics, the approach, the professionalism, and actually, the direct approach, because what you've been bespeaking during the meeting, then you follow up and then you just start working. It's quite different in different cultures. And I can say that from experience. We worked with all sorts of clients, with European clients, with Middle Eastern clients. And I mean, those are the most difficult, to be honest. And I mean, we worked with French clients, with all sorts of people. So working with the US clients, I would say it's the best experience we had. And if speaking about Upwork, I mean, that was, I guess, not the first time we had a corporate experience working for corporate company in the US, but we actually had a nice one. I mean, in terms of the approach, for example, I'm originally from Ukraine, and we had people from different locations as well. But when the war in Ukraine struck, they actually offered, when they banned all the developers from Russia and Belarus, they actually offered the compensation package for them. So they parted on good terms, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And they offered the same to Ukrainian developers. So they actually, I mean, were the good experience for us and for our developers.
Absolutely. And I think your point, though, is that there are regional differences when applying for work on Upwork, right? The US is obviously not only a lucrative market, but it's a different type of clientele. Whereas someone in Germany, let's say, they will
Yeah.
have a very different type of approach to it. And I think, but the good news is, and it sounds like you've been able to work with people all over the world. So even though you're not US based, you can still be able to find those opportunities, knowing that there are kind of cultural differences and the way that they approach engaging with freelancers. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And actually, as that's the beauty of being a freelancer. That's the beauty of being a work from home person or a self-employed or whoever you are, is that yes, there are actually ways and opportunities right now, and Upwork is one of them actually to find jobs. Like and to find multiple clients from multiple locations. For example, if you've had a negative experience with one client, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will have the negative experience with another client. Maybe look for another location because actually, yes, there are mentalities that are hard to deal with. So don't work with them. So that would be your experience, your experience we all learn from. So don't work with them. So the
Right.
next time, maybe look somewhere else. And yes, that's the beauty of it. You can actually find the best fit for your professional skills from all over the world.
Well, I want to get into, how you can determine, if the client is the right fit or not. But before I do that, though, you told me before this interview that you had been on the original Odesk. And so you've been about seven,
Yeah.
8 years on the platform. And one of the questions I had was, what would you tell your younger self today? And you had a really interesting insight about what you would be doing different today that seems to be paying off dividends for you. And that would be?
Well, that would be the different approach in applying for projects and actually identifying clients first. So the approach we used back in the times when I worked as a salesperson was like a machine gunner, spamming clients with the same, proposals and speaking about ourselves. We are the best on the market, blah, 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 all this stuff. Of course, I would change the approach completely. I mean, you should be a sniper and not a machine gunner. And you should actually reply to the client's pain and the client's needs. And the shorter your application text is, the better the response rate is, actually. And because you should be looking at this from the perspective of your potential client, right? They go on the Upwork and they go on the platform to release their pain, to solve some kind of their problem. So you should be responding to their problem and not speaking about yourself at all. Don't throw your certificates right front and center, show them that you can solve their problem. So that would be the first, I guess, advice, to change the proposal style completely and the proposal size. Don't send sheets of papers and novels to those poor clients. And the second advice I would give is to identify clients better. I guess that comes, maybe both ways. Firstly, you should be looking for red flags. Better don't ignore them, because if something seems amiss, it probably is. So better don't risk your reputation on Upwork. It's better, to kind of pass on the opportunity than to try to resurrect your reputation, your GCC on Upwork. That would be a disastrous experience. But then we all learn on that experience. And secondly, identifying the potential of the client and the client's type, because not necessarily the bad client type is the one who would scam you or not pay you or whatever. Those could be also the indecisive types who would require hours and hours of talking to you, of constant advice without even making an offer. So all sorts of clients could be there, and you have to be really careful with that. So I would change my approach to identifying clients as well, because I lost a lot of hours talking to people who were, in the end,
Sure.
led to nothing.
Now, you also, when you started, you had an agency account and you had and then you have freelancers obviously that work for you. So, but your agency account. And so when you started, you were primarily focusing on the, as an agency versus on the individual freelancer. But you noticed that there was a better approach to that. So can you talk about a little bit as an agency owner, how you're approaching Upwork today?
Yeah, absolutely. Back in the days when I was a salesperson, I was promoting my agency, another agency, and I would change that approach completely, because what we understood after a couple of years working on Upwork is that Upwork actually is not made for agencies or for companies. And agencies on Upwork are considered by Upwork as a bunch, a collection of freelancers, and not as companies. So when you promote your business on Upwork, if you want to work there as a company, you still shouldn't be promoting your company, your agency as a company. You should understand that Upwork only works with freelancers. And so you mustn't be applying on Upwork as a salesperson. You should be applying on Upwork as a developer, so under your developer's accounts. Those should be real accounts. So my advice is be transparent. I mean, no scamming, nothing. So you should be actually registering your real developers and applying on behalf of your developers, because the client wants to see who they will be working with in the end. And that what I would have changed, of course, because we lost a lot of times trying to apply as salespeople and trying to say, hey, I got the team somewhere there who can do the job. And then why don't they reply, So of course this approach leads to nowhere, but lost money. So yeah, you should be applying on Upwork as developers, as specialists who actually will do the job in the end.
Let me ask you, when you're applying as the freelancer via the agency account, are you going in? So do you have kind of one person that is going in for each one of the freelancers, finding them the individual jobs and doing the application? Or are you telling your freelancers that they should be doing it? So I'm more of a process management question about because we have an agency too, right? And I go into the account as my partner, Daniel, because he's the CTO versus as me. So I'm just curious, how is your process management as an agency owner with those individual freelancers?
Well, the applying part should absolutely be taken by someone who is responsible for the sales part. You can't lose your precious developer's time for lead generating, because that's the job that could be done by a salesperson or by yourself as a CEO or whoever does the business part. But as soon as the client replies and as soon as the conversation starts, you are no longer able to reply on behalf of your developer. So each time the client replies and you can see as a salesperson, as a business owner, that this is a promising client and there is a potential behind that. What you should be doing is you actually write to your developers and say, hey, John, I need you to write this in the Upwork chat. And you send them direct text. So you kind of, you don't rely on your developers to write the correct thing to the client, because the best developers are not always the best communicators, and vice versa. Hard skills and soft skills do not always align, and that developer might ruin the entire thing with that answer. So you write the exact thing you want them to write and say, hey, John, Mary, Jane, whoever, just send this to this client. And then, that sort of communication would go up to the very call. And then, of course, on the call, your developer goes and discusses the tech side of the business.
Got it.
And that's basically how it's done.
Yeah, that's really very, very helpful, Olga. I really appreciate that, because I think there are different challenges being an independent freelancer versus having an agency where you have a stable, if you will, of different freelancers that you're managing for. So we talked about this a couple of times, or I say you have, you have a sales background, and we talked about, client communication, right? Now, we believe, and I think maybe you would concur, that we believe that you should be more than willing to get on a video call, on a Zoom call with any client that requests, because I think especially nowadays, clients are almost demanding a video call of some sort in there. But there were some other things that you had some insights about related to how do you find those red flags in a client? I really want to get into this. How do you figure out if that client is going to be a mix? Is it from the job description? Is it, when you're starting to talk to them? Because that was, I think, one of your superpowers is the filtering to make sure they're the right fit.
I actually have the entire video on my YouTube channel, because apart from running a software company, I also do have a YouTube channel, and I have the entire video dedicated to red flags in the clients. And like I've already mentioned, there are all sorts of clients out there and all sorts of red flags. So it's not necessarily the client who would scam you, but the one who would just waste your time. And the red flags could be anywhere. But I mean, it could be in the description, but you can't really rely on that. I would give that a chance. Even if I see something amiss, I would give it a chance. But what I can see, I mean, based on their communication, how they start to communicate with you, and you can already see if something is amiss or not. But still, you can still give it a chance. You can go on a call, and then actually you can see, how he treats you afterwards. What sorts of language they use. It could be even in the language. It could be even in the punctuation. You can just feel it. I don't know how to explain that. I guess my intuition is pretty high by this time. But yes, it's all about the communication style and the approach. And of course, I mean, even if you're unsure, but you decide to start the cooperation with them, you decide to accept the offer, whatever, be very cautious, especially if this is your first time client, but even if you've been working for a month with them. Please don't use messengers and whatever for sending over the information. And if you have, always, have a backup, make screenshots and send it to the Upwork chat just to have all this proof for the Upwork support, just in case. Because again, it could happen to the best of us. Even if you worked with this client for months, it happened to us just recently, some sort of misunderstanding, some sort of something, and then you're either left without being paid or whatever. So just don't, give yourself that trouble. Yeah. Save all the conversations you had via other messengers with that client in the Upwork chat. And again, just use your common sense when communicating with the client. And
I think that's a really important point.
Is everything.
I think that is a real important point that you made about the capability of documenting that communication, because inevitably at some point something could go wrong on a job. And if you don't have that communication thread documented, it's really hard for the Upwork resolution team to be able to sit there and figure out what's kind of going on. And so I think you're absolutely right. That's where, again, just putting in your project updates into the message, right, tied to it, so that people know kind of what's going, what's happening. And again, appreciating the fact that sometimes these are after the fact, but not during. But I think, again, giving it easy to resolve issues by Upwork is making sure that you're giving Upwork the information they need to resolve those issues. I also think, too, that when it comes to client interaction, and of course, I think your superpower is based on the fact that you've been doing this for a long time. But I would say that probably if someone's being very dismissive of you, I think that's, or they think they know more than you do, and they're just trying to tell you what to do. Like, no, I want you to push this button. You're like, well, that button will blow everything up. And then when it blows everything up, they're like, well, why'd you push that button? I thought you were the expert. I think those type of flags, because you're right. We started this conversation by saying that, look, you've done work all over the world. There are many opportunities to work with many different types of people. And so if this is not going to fit, then you know what? It's okay. It's not a finite world when it comes to the opportunities, because you'll log into Upwork tomorrow and there'll be something brand new that's a perfect fit for you potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Just better pass on the opportunity than ruin your entire reputation on Upwork, because there are all sorts of crazy people out there. Don't risk it. Not worth
Olga,
it.
I really appreciate you taking time. So what is I'll put links into the show notes, but how can people find you? How can people who are looking for IT services find you, and how can they just find you online?
Oh, you can just Google my name, Olga Pogozheva.
Oh, that's easy.
And I have a YouTube channel. It has almost 5,000 subscribers by now. And yeah, I talk about IT. Those who want to do business with me can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm all over the Google.
Absolutely. I will make sure to put links into the show notes so everyone can reach out to you and watch that video on the client red flags. I think that's a great one to share with our audience. Olga, thank you again so much for taking time out of your busy day to be with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the video. And if you're not already subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel here. More importantly, if you found it useful, please share it with your friends. And one more thing, if you're looking for some great tools to help you succeed on Upwork, go check out 𝗂𝗛𝗧𝗘𝗥𝗦. We think you'll like it.